So colleagues, good afternoon, and I think we start with the second session. And before we continue with our agenda, I would also just very much welcome you all to Vienna, and looking forward to continue the discussion with Madam Chair Maya, and over the next days, and also thanks to Yuka and the Secretariat for preparing. In continuing our agenda, we are now very fortunate to have Wana and Bert with us, who are able to give us an update on what happened at SB 48 and on the outlook towards COP24. Wana, I assume you have a presentation, so can we give the floor to you?
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, colleagues. Very interesting discussion this morning. Somebody asked me, how do you feel coming to Vienna? I said, I feel very relaxed, my God, for the first time, because I have no role to support substantively. I just be here and listen. This is actually the role that we are looking for once a while. Very interesting. Okay. During the intersessional period between the last AB meeting that you have early of this year and this one, there are two important sessions taking place under the UNFCCC, which is one in May in Bonn and another one additional session in Bangkok that just concluded last few weeks, and addressing or focusing only on those Paris Work Program agenda item across the three bodies, which is APA, SAPSA, and SBI. For Bonn, as you can see that in Bonn we have three agenda items. I only focus on technology issue mainly because that is most relevant to you, because if I cover the whole thing, you will take a longer time. For Bonn, we have three agenda items. As you recall, we have two under the PAWP, one under the SBI on the periodic assessment of the effectiveness of implementation of the technology mechanism, and another one is on technology framework under the SAPSTA, the two items, and one that referred to us by COP23. We have on the agenda the item on independent review of the effective implementation of CTCN that submit to COP23, but the COP is not able to conclude. So in order to advance, so the COP refer this for SBI 48 for recommendation. And for this item in the last session, the party already agree on to forward the draft decision to COP24. So this issue will not come back at the next COP because it's already agreed, just forward for adoption. And I just move quickly to, doesn't go. Okay, so my presentation just to outline only the two issues. So the one in Bonn take place, as I earlier mentioned, and also in Bangkok. So on the independent review, the key recommendation the SBI recommend to the COP is to invite party NDE and UNEP in collaboration with UNIDO and advisory board to implement relevant recommendations. So the party didn't want to single out any particular recommendation, but endorse it entirely and leave it to UNEP, CTCN, UNIDO, and AB to really implement those recommendations, and also invite the operating entity of the financial mechanism also to implement relevant recommendation as it stands in the decision, in the recommendation on the report of the review, and also invite, I think during the discussion, the issue about the need to strengthen capacity of NDE, in particular developing country, came out strongly, and party really invite party and CTCN to enhance the support on this area. So this is the key recommendation that go to the COP. One thing that's very good that parties see this as a very positive review of CTCN, the outcome, the progress of the work. And you can see that that's why the COP already decided at the last session to extend or renew the MOU with UNEP and UNIDO to continue to serve the citizen for the next 4 years. This is give very positive signal to the process that the technology mechanism established in Cancun daily functioning and ready to serve the implementation of Paris Agreement, the new mandate that is forthcoming in Katowice. So that is linked to the new agenda. Another agenda item being elaborated under the SBI is the modalities to for the the assessment of the work of the technology mechanism. And technology, I'm very proud of my team actually, and the technology negotiator. We are the group that really make progress under the PAWP item. You are the leading team. You almost get the gold medal. I hope that we can continue to have this gold medal in. And we used to have this reputation. I tell you, I'm here. Somebody asked you, when do you join Secretary? I joined since 1999, so I've been here 20 years. And we have very good reputation, technology. We break through all the time. Whatever happened, we are the first group that led the flag. I'm done, no one ever. So you see in the status of the work that both agenda item party are very constructive. They work among themselves, they close the door and they come back and they come with a very good text that right now we have all the, very party text at the moment. We call it draft text with all the draft decision and also the actual annex that come together. So we have very competent the co-facilitator of these two items, I must say, somebody here. And we get a very good progress and outcome on periodic assessment, I think very mature. So the chair of both SAPTA and SBI are quite happy with this. I will talk later on about what is the next step. So for technology framework, the party already have complete, I think maybe second reading of the text that come out from the bond session and then improve it and have a good discussion on the structure and all those, the detail. They also come up with the draft decision as well. So these two issues are, the text are very mature. As you may recall at the Bangkok session, in order to ensure comparable progress and coherent, party actually request the chair of all bodies to coordinate and come up with a joint reflection note, including the textual proposal that can help facilitate the work of party in Katowice. We are in the process of working with the chair right now, and the target is to make it available by mid-October. So for technology, many people ask what kind of textual proposal is. For my team, it's very straightforward because the text is already mature on their own. It's very minor. It's not really we're going to change anything because it's already there, all the element and text that we really need. I think for the tech framework item, party already give a kind of request the co-facilitator to help streamlining the text, and then the team is working closely with co-facilitator under the guidance of SAPTA chair. So these two issues, in my view, already very good to have a chance to conclude in Katowice quite early. I think I will conclude the issue about bond for now, and then I come back about preparation for Katowice later after you hear from the tech and chair and vice chair on their work. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. And you already make a nice transition towards the tech. So we have Claudia and Dinara here, the chair and the vice chair of the Technology Executive Committee. If you can briefly update us on the recent activities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carsten. And yes, we'll provide an input, a report on what happened on the tech meeting last week. And as Carsten mentioned, Dinara Gershikova, Vice Chair of the Tech, is here with me. So both Tech Chair and Vice Chair are very interested in seeing the developments of the AB. And of course, I'm wearing my hat now as the Tech Chair. So this is a Tech 17 meeting outcomes that took place last week in Bonn. So at Tech 17, we continued with the implementation of our rolling work plan from 2016-2018. The Tech work plan activities included those related to the COP mandates coming from Paris, and of course the 6 climate technology thematic areas that the work plan includes. For many of its activities, the Tech has collaborated closely to the CTCN, and we will highlight some of these collaboration areas. And of course, the Tech 18 tentatively discussed having our next meeting the 18th to the 20th of March next year. And for this, we also discussed the opportunity and the idea of having a joint meeting or a joint session on this meeting with the CTCN, given that next year we'll have some more information and mandates potentially coming out of Katowice, and therefore we thought it's a good idea to have a discussion, all the technology mechanism together as we plan for our next rolling work plan, and as we also think together how to respond to new mandates from the parties on the Paris Agreement implementation. So first, I'll brief you on some of the key activities of our work plan coming out of our last Tech meeting. On the adaptation technologies, the Tech agreed on the publication on a potential application of South-South and triangular cooperation, both on adaptation and mitigation technologies. So I should brief you that this started first as an adaptation work, but now this year the Tech expanded the scope of this work on South-South and triangular cooperation to also include mitigation technologies. And this is to assist countries in the implementation on both NDCs and NAPs. And we agreed to conclude this work to be presented by COP24. The Tech also agreed on key messages for COP24 on South-South and triangular cooperation. On the topic of climate technology financing, the Tech agreed on its input to the Standing Committee on Finance for draft guidance to the operating entities of the financial mechanism. And also the Tech agreed to initiate the evaluation of the JEF Poznan strategic program on technology transfer with a view to enhance the effectiveness of the technology mechanism. Regarding the topic of emerging and cross-cutting issues, the Tech has explored elements and features of endogenous capacities and technologies and ways to develop and enhance them by considering findings of the survey of NDEs and relevant stakeholders, as well as inputs from other bodies. So the Tech has started this work responding to the mandate of further work on endogenous capacities and technologies, and it is still at the conceptual level. We are engaging with NDEs and stakeholders to better define what we will understand as endogenous technologies and what countries would like to see in this scope of work. The Tech also agreed to publish a summary report to deliver these findings to parties and relevant bodies, institutions, and stakeholders. On the area of innovation, research, development, and demonstration, the Tech agreed on the publication of a policy brief on energizing entrepreneurs to tackle climate change, which will be launched at COP24. The Tech agreed also on key messages to COP24 on climate technology entrepreneurship. Regarding mitigation technologies, the Tech acknowledged its enhanced engagement in the technical examination process on mitigation and its participation to the regional technical expert meetings in Africa, Asia, Latin America, and the Caribbean. This has been an important work by the Tech this year in collaboration with the CTCN. And the Tech also agreed on recommendations on ways forward and actions to be taken based on the outcomes of the TEMS on mitigation, responding to relevant COP mandates under Decision 13CP23. Now moving to the next topic, technology needs assessment. The Tech concluded its work on a paper on how parties could align their TNAs with the process to formulate and implement NAPs. And this was done together with the Adaptation Committee, colleagues from the LDC expert group, and with the CTCN. And following this work, the Tech agreed on key messages to the COP on technology needs assessments. In our next agenda item, we discuss work done in collaboration with the CTCN, not agenda item, the next topic. And of course, this is very relevant for us at the TEC. One of the key areas where we work very closely with CTCN and also colleagues from the GCF is on technology research, development, and demonstration. The TEC hold a thematic dialogue on climate technology incubators and accelerators at TEC 16, hosted together with GCF and the CTCN. Based on these findings, which emerged from the dialogue, the TEC, in collaboration with the CTCN and the GCF, prepared 2 documents. The first document is a summary called Catalyzing Financing for Climate Technology Incubators and Accelerators, which you can see a really nice picture there, and the report on promoting climate technology entrepreneurship through incubators and accelerators. I would like to mention that this report is product of our joint work, and it's also been translated to French and Spanish, which has been well received by TEC members from countries that speak those languages, and of course, it helps the communication of our joint work. The CTCN advisory board members and CTCN staff participated in the TEC Task Force on Innovation and Research Development and Demonstration. So this is also a way that we have concretely made progress in working together, in having both CTCN and GCF, CTCN staff and members of the advisory board working on this particular task force. Regarding mitigation technologies, I already mentioned this. We collaborated closely with the CTCN in the regional events, and in the regional themes, we work in 2, in particular, the industrial energy efficiency and on industrial waste to energy and circular economy themes on mitigation. And of course, doing this at the regional level was also very useful to reach out to NDEs in those regions, and also to hear from the ground what were the concerns and what were the inputs from different countries, which was also work that was considered as we develop our key messages and as we develop our work in the last TEC session. Regarding the technology needs assessment, the TEC continued working with the CTCN, the Adaptation Committee, and the LEG on considering how countries could align their TNAs and NAPs. Regarding the whole technology mechanism, the TEC and the CTCN continue to work to strengthen the linkages between the 2 mechanisms, between the mechanism, technology mechanism and financial mechanism, including through the participation of their chairs in the GCF annual meeting with the UNF CCC thematic bodies. In conclusion, I would like to say that the TEC continues to implement its work plan for 2016-2018. It's coming, obviously, to an end this year. We have brainstorming some new topics that will work, and of course, we've done part of this work program in close collaboration with the CTCN, and we look forward to continuing working in this manner. To respond to the COP guidance and support the implementation of the Paris Agreement, also to support the implementation on technology components of NDCs and NAPs, and to enhance collaboration with parties and other relevant stakeholders. With this, I thank you for your attention, and of course, we're open for your questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Claudia. Very useful. I suggest that we collect the questions and come back to this after the next presentations. And we now, after the stock-taking part, we look a bit into the future towards COP24. And I would first give the floor again to Juana to give us an update what to expect in Katowice. And then Karina would maybe update us on the activities of the CTCN at COP24. Juana, you would have the floor again.
Very few slides. Very busy at the moment if you ask me about how life before Katowice, it's very, very a lot of things that you have to be ready and prepare yourself to be fit enough to walk many kilometers, and it's big, huge conference center, and it's going to be cold, and we're going to have many iteration of many draft texts that you are waiting. In Katowice, we are not only focused on the Paris Agreement work program. As you know, that SAPSA and SBA and the COP are coming back with the full agenda item. We would need to see how we're going to manage. For example, on technology, we will have 5 items there. So I just show with you first. Right now, the COP will start 2 weeks, but we assume that the SB are going to only close on the first week, and then and plus there will be a leadership summit on the 3rd, which is on Monday. Many mandate events for Katowice. You have all the high-level events, plus the presidency event, plus the Joy Tech and CTCN, plus so many things. So I have a kind of a gentleman agreement with Yuka team that in Katowice, his team will help us to lead the side event on Tech and CTCN, because my team is very stressed and may not have capacity to organize a lot of things in Katowice. There will be a pre-COP meeting. I'm not sure if invitation already gone out, but the pre-COP will be on 22nd and 23rd and 24th in October in Krakow. I think that you may got the invitation soon and help prepare your minister. And also, there are a lot of pre-sessional. The pre-sessional will start on 26th, where a lot of delegates will start coming, and also until the 1st. That's still the planning that we have, but have yet to be finalized and confirmed again by the presidency team. For Katowice, as I mentioned, we'll have 5 agenda items. Maybe some of you can recall that we have 1 item on linkage between financial mechanism and technology mechanism, leapfrog from COP22 to COP24. So we have that on the agenda. We hope that we will not put this thing too much busy on the first week and leave it for second week, and focus our work first week on the finalizing the Paris Agreement work program. And then we will have, as usual, the joint annual report of the Tech and CTCN. We will need to move swiftly to discuss and agree and send the draft decision to the COP within the first week. I can tell you, you will have only 3 days or 3.5 days to work everything by Paris work program and the COP agenda item, this kind of thing. So that's why I said be ready to, run fast and conclude everything. And then we will have Poznan strategic program under the SBI also. But this document will come together with the JEF annual report on that. I think Claudia already mentioned that we have a mandate for the tech and to review the Poznan strategic program, and we don't have enough the thing to do that, so the tech will quickly come up with maybe early next year with the work, the review. And this is for the moment to show you that we'll be very busy, all the tech negotiator, that with a lot of items coming up right now. And that is in general, but just to have some background that we are at the moment prepared a joint reflection note on across the 3 bodies. So the chair are working closely together. The plan still that we will have it on the web by mid-October. The goal is 15 or 16 October. It should be on the web. And that will include the textual proposal for all agenda items under the PAWP between the three bodies. And hopefully the party can move swiftly. And that textual proposal can be very useful for you to really look into how you can actually use that as the starting point to wrap up your work in Katowice. And what else in general? Do I miss anything? But no. I think at this point, that is what I...
Okay, thank you, Juan. I think the challenge will be to defend the gold medal with this challenging program. Karina, I give the floor to you.
Scott, are you setting up the presentation? Okay. Okay. Thank you. So we just wanted to share a little bit, building upon Juana's presentation. Hold on.
I think
Are you sure? There we go. So just to review a few of the objectives for our participation is to represent the CTCN where we might need to provide a comment and also to follow the negotiations, to use the opportunity to strengthen our collaboration with our key stakeholders, which are our NDEs and of course other network members who are attending the COP, to continue to generate further awareness of the CTCN services that are available and that are being provided, and to demonstrate value of those services, not only to donors and potential donors, but to our general, much broader stakeholder group, so we can share, hopefully in a little bit more aggregated terms, as you've seen some of the figures today, what has been accomplished over the last 5 years. Indeed, this year is the 5th year of our operation, so we're going to be doing some work to sort of talk a little bit about what has been learned over the course of the last 5 years and where we see things moving forward. In terms of events, we will have our technology mechanism side event together with the tech. And we are also, in addition, planning to have a 5-year event where we will ask both NDEs to provide some commentary and talk a little bit about the various technical assistance and capacity building activities that we've been doing. We're trying to limit the number of additional side events that we're participating in this year somewhat from previous years. But we will be participating in other thematic side events, as well as the World Climate Summit, which will have a focus on private sector engagement. And then as part of the Gender Action Plan that was passed last year, we will be working together with various organizations and the Women and Gender constituency to host a workshop that focuses on the technology needs assessments and gender. Looking to see how we can be more incorporate more consistently gender in the TNA process. So our consortium partners, UNEP DTU, will also be in that, and we'll be sharing some initial drafts of gender guidance for the TNA process. As we've done in years past, we will have a technology mechanism exhibition space where we will be highlighting both the tech and the CTCN. We found this space to be very useful in the past. We've often had actually even a queue there for people who have lots of different questions, so we find it really helpful. And we'll be doing also media outreach together with our co-hosts UN Environment and UNIDO, as well as UNFCCC and GCF partners, as we've done last year. Generally, the entire CTCN team tries to reach out to the various constituency groups and attend at least some of their morning sessions and meet with them. And then we'll also be doing bilateral meetings with various countries that we are either engaged on in technical assistance or hope to be working with. And then we will try to use social media to keep people informed of the issues in terms of technology that are happening throughout the 2 weeks. And then, as we've normally produced a progress report that highlights the work that we've done in the previous year, this year we'll be doing that, but also trying to have more of a look past the last 5 years to get a sense of how things have developed within the CTCN. We'll also be developing country briefs, which are just maybe a 1 to 2 page document, but shows for each country that we've been doing technical assistance in what type of work has been going on, who are network members, the NDEs, and these we'll be sharing with our NDEs, but also with climate change focal points and other national stakeholders. These briefs will also be available on our website so that anyone can download them if they want to see sort of a country snapshot of the work that we're doing. and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Karina. I would first open the floor to the advisory board members and then invite in the next round observers and network members to, if they want to raise questions or have some comments to make. Maybe, Karina, as I already have the floor, you talked about the award and the 5-year event. I would also assume that it takes place around the 5th of December. Or if you have another date, maybe you could communicate this to the advisory board members, as not all of them stay for the full time in Katowice. So with this, I would now open the floor to advisory board members if there are any questions or remarks or hints they want to make. I see 2 flags up on the far end. I think it's Ringo starting, and then.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. It's a question really for Claudia, and you mentioned, it was very fast, but you mentioned an event at the COP on RD&D and entrepreneurs. Was that at this coming COP? Or maybe I misunderstood.
Sorry, just for clarification, no, this is not an event at the COPs. It was a thematic dialogue that we hosted at Tech 16, which was organized together with CTCN and GCF. So that was the event. And the thing that we produced after that, it's 2 documents. So one is on catalyzing financing for incubators, and then the report promoting climate technology entrepreneurship through incubators and accelerators. And the other one, entrepreneurship, it's also documents that are working by the tech.
Okay, Sumaya, the floor is yours.
Basically, 2 short questions. One to Karina on the CTCN. Like you mentioned, we also talked about the gender and TNA assessment. When you put gender as an assessment parameter, there are other similar things. When you consider marginalized groups, gender is one of the aspects. And what we are seeing on the ground as implementation outcomes is also the impacts on other marginalized groups. So is there any method or any process that you have already adapted to get into that, number one. Number 2 is a little more generalized question, because after Monday, I think a lot of things will change, because IPCC will come out with the 1.5 degrees Celsius assessment. And though there is an attempt to change this executive summary at least, a lot of pressure is being applied. Even then, there will be things which will be seen in a new light. So many of these, like, you are already planning for COP24 and further, because the work plan will come up. Is there a sort of preparation within CTCN that in the coming work plan, and as well as what you do go out and do in COP24 and hence, will be taking into account what comes out in IPCC new assessment? So that's because the clear understanding is a lot of earlier projections have got changed. So need to have a fresh assessment from all stakeholders. CTCN is very critical in that.
Thank you, Sumaya. We collect some interventions, and I would give the floor now to Samuel, followed by Spencer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question observation or clarification from Wana. Of course, one has been part of this process for a very long time, especially the UNFCCC, and you have also been part of the CTCN process for quite some time. And one of the main challenge that is facing the CTCN is insufficient funding for its activities. I wonder, what can be recommended to the COP in terms of improving the financing of CTCN activities. Thank you.
Spencer?
Thank you very much, and thank you for the presentations. I have just two issues. Well, one is just maybe a little concern, and maybe that is for Wana. 5 items, 3.5 days. That's a concern. We do have two of those items are items that will live with us for a long time, the technology framework and the periodic review and so on. I think, in my view, judging from what has happened in Bonn and what has happened in Bangkok, yes, we may have the gold medal, but I don't think 3.5 days seems to be a really short time to have those very far-reaching technology documentation complete. So there might be some implications for not completing our work in the COP, but it's just a concern. I believe also that the whole question of completing is one, but the manner of completion should be also very critical, that we have persons in the room, representative of all views, so we don't have a document completed in a manner which may be questioned further, because we're talking about the technology framework, which has a life, and we're talking about the periodic review and maybe other very important documents. So that's just a little area of little concern and caution. In terms of the CTCN objectives in Bonn, I'm not quite sure if I catch it well, but somehow I think we should link that with also the outcome of those two critical issues that will guide the work going forward. And I'm not sure if I picked that up in the objectives in the Bonn session. And furthermore, I think the objectives always is to transfer technology. I think that has to be centralized in whatever activities that the CTCN engages in the work. Thank you.
Thank you, Spencer. I would give now the floor to Claudia and then Wana and Karina the chance to respond to the remarks.
Actually, one more quick question. I had one quick question. Karina, you mentioned the event on TNAs and gender for the COP. And I was just discussing with Inara, it would be good to have some tech involvement on that. So we'll offer some collaboration as you organize the event and of course during the event. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Wana, you want to briefly respond? I think we have the benefit of having you also the next days in the room, so to engage you in the discussions further. You want to quickly react to the points, or shall we?
Let me answer to Spencer first. Good question. You know, technology being seen among other agenda as the most mature. If you say that you cannot do it, you don't think about other agenda item. It's not possible. I can tell you. That's why I said be ready and be fit and eat as much as you can, because you will not have time if you won't have to complete. Of course, we do what we can. We go as far as we can on the first week. If we are really on the, if we exhausted, cannot sleep anymore, and then this is what you can, then of course the SB will conclude or close on Saturday, I think, or Monday, Saturday. Then we will have to report to the presidency for guidance, because this is one of the package we would need to deliver. And it's a mean of implementation. If you mean this is to enable the action on the other part, and you see if you don't have technology as part of the package, it's nothing about other issue. So I still believe that we can do it, but of course there are a lot of work to be done, and the tech is very mature for our, and I see that this group are very cooperative. They find solution. They're a bit of exhausted, but they can do it always. I still trust that you can do it, but let's see. Another issue about funding. I'm not sure if I'm the right person to provide solution or telling you how to improve it. I'm trying to look into, we have a Bible, the decision of the COP since Cancun. My team have been thicker and thicker every day. So when you look into when we discuss, when we wrap up the Bali action plan and we come up with the technology mechanism established, the most challenging issue about funding at the end. This is the last sticking point that we finalized, and we have one of the paragraph that cover the whole world, that the funding can come from everywhere for whatever. And then you see that when you come to learning by doing, you see that how challenging it is to have Yuka walking around the world to ask for money and able to, this is not a very, for whoever watching the webcast and you're looking for apply that Yuka post, think about it, that you have capacity. This is not an easy job, and I actually compliment the whole CTCN team and all the donor to quickly come together and put up the system that really deliver in a very short period of time. You're thinking of some project that you have to submit for other process. It takes a long time to approve, but they are able to deliver in a very short time period of time. And the challenging is about funding. And I think they are moving on the right track now. They're trying to tap into the resources of the GCF if they prove that they can go in that direction. And my understanding and my belief in the past that any donor, they like to associate with the success story. If we can prove that this is the real mechanism that really works, I'm sure the 10 million, 20 million per year is not a lot for them. There are a lot more that they can spend. But the only way that you can tap into that resources is to prove or demonstrate that you really deliver. And this is the mechanism that party find it useful and want to use you. When they see that coming, I think the money will flow in. So that is the role I much encourage that the advisory board to actually work together with the technology mechanism. We have a long way to prove ourselves, but there's no magic solution about funding because it's not only CTCN. There are many other issues that really have a problem about funding. You know that this is a financial crisis around the world on many other issues that we need to continue to prove that the technology mechanism, the CTCN, and the mechanism that party really find it useful to help them implement the work on the ground. If we can make that positive story come out strongly at the COP, I'm sure the donor will turn to CTCN easily and even come to them and say, I want to give you more money because you're really attractive for our investment. Investor, you need to tap into private sector. That is my only say that we really need to prove that we are very good, that we are different from other. Many questions asked why I have to go to CTCN because there are many other mechanisms that support country on the ground. We have to find our own niche to make ourselves special, become something that really people will find it useful. Thank you.
Thank you, Warner. Before I give the floor to Karina, I would just briefly like to open and invite observers and network members if they also want to come in and comment or may raise an observation at this point. Okay, thank you. I would now give Karina the floor for some last words on this agenda item, and then we move on to the next one.
Thank you. So regarding the event on the technology needs assessment, this is coming about as a result of guidance from the Gender Action Plan. That's why the focus is specifically on gender in this case. But in the course of the discussions, we are hoping for this to be a discussion, not just a presentation. And so we want to ensure that there is raised there the importance of both stakeholder analysis going into any of these processes, and then also that there's consideration given for inclusion of all marginalized groups. So while we are not providing the specific guidance, as facilitators, we'll try to make sure that this is incorporated into the discussion. That's a very good point. For the IPCC findings, I think generally our director is a pretty adept at incorporating these types of the facts that come out of this report and others into the talking points that we use in our different events. And I think given what the expectation is for those, it's something that will be extremely relevant for us in these events. And then Claudia, thank you for the suggestion. And yes, we definitely want to work together with the tech on the TNA event. So we'll be in contact about that.
Just to add on that, there may be indeed the devastating message coming from the 1.5 degree message from the IPCC. We have, in a way, when we offer the tools, methodologies and tools for countries to assess their risks, adaptation risks, coastal zone management risk, vulnerability mapping, we need to take into consideration maybe that indeed the prognoses are severe than before, and we have to give those tools that the countries can assess what if indeed the situation will be so severe at the end of the, let's say, 2050 or at the end of the century. So we have to be adapting at least our advice into that sense that countries have the means and tools. On mitigation, definitely it's just urgency, more and more urgency to help countries to mitigate. For Spencer, just shortly that what comes to the framework discussion and the periodic assessment discussion, we definitely need to be there just learning how the parties will see the technology mechanism going on. We don't engage the negotiation, definitely. I have learned that one hard way. And then, of course, we have to look at the closure that what then finally happened to the independent review, that whether that is really out of and take lessons learned. Otherwise, of course, we are there for information for you.
Thank you, Jukka. Before we close this item, I give the floor to Andrea.
Thank you. Just a brief question on the technology mechanism side event. I would be just curious to know the scope of this event, if you've already considered a certain subject to be discussed, or would it be just an update of the work of the tech and the CTCN?
Karina, you really have the last word on this agenda.
Okay. So typically the technology mechanism side event provides the tech and the CTCN with an opportunity to discuss the work that they've done both independently and jointly over the past year, and to highlight some of the key issues or findings that we have. As I mentioned to you before, we've also discussed that this year we might like to see if GCF can also have some few words there to talk about the collaboration that we've done as the three different groups as well.
Okay, thank you. Now I would turn to a completely different subject. It should be 4 o'clock by now. So when we start to talk about the CTCN, about the recommendations the CTCN received from the different reviews, and we are running a bit late on time, but this is a very important item before we look more into the future to see what messages we got from the reviews of the CTCN activities. And we would open this by presentation by the Secretariat. So, Jukka, is it you presenting or who will? I give the floor to you.
Yes, thank you. So we will have now an overview about the recommendations that, in particular, the review we have received last year, the official review within the UNFCCC from Ernst & Young. But you may see also here that there is a overview of all the reviews that CTCN have been gone through during its first 5 years of operation. And so the first in 2016 within UN Environment Internal, then UNFCCC, the Danida from Development Agency from Denmark this year, and there is a common one from the European Commission that is going to be happening in a couple of months from now. Usually, generally, we can have a very good input on positive input from these reviews, and also they have produced relevant recommendations to improve our operations. And so we're now going through the actions that CTCN have put in place in terms of operations in order to respond to those recommendations. In particular, this is referring to the UNFCCC of last year. So the first is referring to the role of ND and their awareness. So along these lines, CTCN has reposted in our website the old ND guidance document that was prepared in the old time, and we have put more emphasis on raising the relevance of the ND profile, especially during the regional meetings, and putting them in contact with the other climate focal points. We have been inviting also focal points from GEF, GCF, and we have also organized joint meeting, back-to-back meeting with the GCF in order to strengthen the relationship with the NDAs. So this is very much in our radar. Following now the second recommendations refers to the governance of the CTCN. It also refers also to the advisory board in particular. And so during this AB 12, we are, of course, offering the opportunity to have a discussion about the program of work until the 2019-2022. So in order also to enhance and make a more participative process with our governing body. Moving forward, recommendation number 3 encourages the CTCN to clarify the role of the NDs in developing countries, developed countries, sorry, so Annex 1 countries. And along these lines, there have been a meeting in the last gathering in Bangkok, and I think Ian will report briefly on this later on, so we will have an update on that. Then, CTCN is trying to systematize our engagement and our approach towards developed countries NDs. As you know, we always share the requests that are coming in order to offer pro bono opportunities also to NDEs, Annex 1 countries NDEs. And we are also incorporating more and more within also our policy of donors reporting the NDE component. So more embedded into that process as well. Recommendation number 4, it's relating to the results mobilization, also in particular referring to UNIDO, the co-hosting agencies, to identify potential sources for additional finances to CTCN. We have already introduced the new deputy director position, which is exactly devoted to that function, and also the role that we are now more targeting in terms of regional banks and regional financiers through our what would have been probably called with a not appropriate language, regional approach, meaning like now with geographical distribution among managers. Recommendation number 5 encourages CTCN and increase linkages between the technology and the financial mechanism, meaning CTCN, GEF, and the GCF, to explore new ways of having for the provision of sustained funding from the financial mechanism. And in this respect, we have definitely worked thoroughly. In fact, the new geographical approach and also entails and the forums that we have organized in the regions are exactly along this line. GEF and GCF, as I was saying before, are invited to our get-together with the countries, and we have opened a very interesting pipeline with the GCF. Within the readiness program, we have a pipeline of some 10 readiness projects, so some of them already approved, some of them are also at the verge of being concluded. So that the process has been very much streamlined. Also now UNIDO is negotiating a framework agreement, so I think we have strengthened a lot that relationship. We're going to have a Jeff steering committee meeting on Friday, also to renew and present the results of the initial funding from the Jeff and propose ways on the way we could enhance and continue that collaboration with the Jeff as well. The number 6 is referring to encourage the CTCN and its advisory board and NDs to increase the efficiency of the technical assistance we provide to countries. In this respect, the geographical distribution is exactly trying to hit this target, meaning that NDEs within a defined region, they have one single manager to interact with along the 3 main services that we provide, meaning technical assistance, capacity building, and networking. So it will be, the relationship will be more streamlined, and they won't be confused about who to interact with depending on the type of the technical assistance. So this was, as Yuka also was mentioning before, it's very much focused on operation. The regional approach is not to be confused also with regional requests. So I think a most appropriate term will be multi-country request. That is meant in here, because they are entailing an increased impact, and the number of multi-country requests is increasing, and we have also new ones in the pipeline, and so this makes all this work is exactly moving towards an increased efficiency of our technical assistances. I've briefly commented before about the fast technical assistance, the FTA, which is another tool that is proving to be effective along these lines as well. Number 7 encourages the CTCN to continue training NDs and provide them healthy capacity building and the elaboration of new requests. Also through not only through regional forums, but also through the incubator program, which is mainly designed for LDCs and seats. In reply to this recommendation, we are definitely undergoing new incubators this year. We're ending a couple in Africa, and NDs are really, Yuka usually call them our main customers. And, they, at this point, this year in particular, I think we have engaged like never before with them during the 2 main regional fora that we have organized in Africa and LAC, also because we have we have organized them within the Climate Week. So, meaning the Climate Forum. Then they had also an opportunity to stay with us for 1 week and going around, have a look at the presentations and the sessions during the Climate Week, and also partner and have an exchange of views among themselves. So this was one of the most well-received news in terms of capacity building for them. So this, I think, has been well received. The recommendation number 8 encourages the CTCN to continue raising the awareness of its services in developing countries. So again, the Climate Week, we are trying to expose the NDEs to broader audiences. So this is again our aim, and raise a bit more their profile, also as climate technology focal point and not only CTCN focal point within the convention. Number 9 speaks to the reinforcement of the involvement of the network in our activities. We can say that now this is a trend that started already last year. The majority of our TAs is now being implemented through the network, and network members are continuously providing webinars, organizing and supporting also our knowledge management system, knowledge portal. And also we have opened our regional fora to them with specific sessions for them to share their expertise, especially their experiences in the regions where the fora are organized. And this was, I think, a very good addition because they felt more engaged. Because it's not, I mean, honestly speaking, it's not so easy to engage with 400 plus 450 network members only on the basis of the technical assistance. So we are exploring ways of multiplying our possibilities to engage with them. At the end, they are one of our main assets now to deliver. And finally, number 10 encourages the CTCN to strengthen the transparency of its funding arrangement and also to increase the reporting and the assessment of our impact. So in reply to these recommendations, we have now thoroughly completed the, as said, the evaluation of our first 30 TAs completed. And this was a very deep exercise. And so the results have been presented already in the beginning of this meeting. And we are continuously refining the monitoring and evaluation process, also to try to capture as much as possible the long-term impact. And in this, we are also engaging and specifying that we need the support also of our focal point, of our NDEs, especially for the long-term impact. If they manage to stay in that position of long-term, because when they change, it's not going to be easy to track what we have done in the country. But I mean, they're informed, and there is an NDE feedback form that we share with them at the end of the technical assistance to get also their input, their feedback. So this is in place, and we are improving the process, the M&E, especially for the technical assistance. And also, we are now adding the TA technical assistance closure reports, meaning a report that we share with the implementers at the beginning for them to identify indicators that they will be reporting against during the implementation. And when the technical assistance is concluded, then we finalize the results and to wrap up what happened and to define definitely the impact. So they will be also added as an extra publication into the website. So to make this more transparent and also to have the impressions of our network members on what challenges have been faced during the implementation. And that was it. Happy to take your questions, if any. Thank you.
Thank you.
Back to you.
Thanks. I think we will see the uptake of the different responses and measures that you outlined when we discuss about the annual operating plan and the program of work. But before we move to this item, maybe we have a round of comments and observations on the different reviews that took place and the responses to them. So I would open the floor now. I see the Temper Norway who takes the floor, so
Yeah, it's a bit difficult, but thank you very much for the floor, Mr. Vice Chair, and to you, Nido, for the presentation. I just had a couple of questions, and firstly, we've heard about the NIDA review now for some time. I personally has not seen it, and I would ask whether that could be made available. Secondly, I appreciate now that EC is also doing a review, and I wonder if the terms of reference for that review is made public and that we can have a look at it. And thirdly, I mean, when you have this presentation, it all sounds fine. You're following up most of the recommendations. What I would really like to hear is, are there some recommendations that you find challenging, and in what way? Because and are there some particular issues that you are actually seeking guidance in this regard? Thank you.
Thank you. I think, Sumaya, you're the next.
A short question. In several places, I noticed that the increase of efficiency is being mentioned. Is that recommended? And CTCN is working, and even the AB advisory board is supposed to help in the efficiency increase. I'm a little confused because initially when UCA presented, one point was for this much dollars, this much $1 million, this many TAs have been done. But is it the only assessment, only criterion or indicator of assessing the efficiency? Because in any case, there are mitigation projects, there are adaptation projects, and the indicators need to be very different kind of indicators. And the way SDGs targets indicators have been developed, and in many countries being developed, it is a contentious process. We have taken part in that. It's a very contested process. So I'd like to know a little more about how these assessments are done on proper kind of indicators on very different kind of things, and what CTCN is probably thinking. Then probably we can also help a little bit, contribute a little bit, how this can be better designed, good indicators, because one is whether the country parties are satisfied. They can be satisfied even if there are adverse impacts on the ground. The other impact is, as initially presented, with very little money, this has been, so many TAs have been done. The third could have been that, okay, you have done this, but the number of people, the number of number of impacts, number of people benefited, that can be there. But there can be many. So what are the kind of indicators for different types?
Okay, so we take questions now. I think Ollie, you're next, and then followed by Spencer.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the very informative presentation. Really appreciated that. I have one question about the point that you made on the incorporation of network members in various regional events, and it's a really interesting point because the network members, a large group that's very potentially hard to engage. So one of the questions I'm thinking about is, to bring network members out to these events is perhaps you need a strong rationale to give them of why they should be there, what's interesting for them. So I just wondered if you can elaborate a little bit more. You mentioned that they found that most of them found it beneficial and they felt more engaged. I just wondered if you could elaborate a little bit more on that, and maybe not for today, but for a future time, it would be helpful for Annex 1 NDEs in particular, perhaps, to have some evidentiary rationale of, hey, this is why we should try, this is why the companies associated with our countries might find it useful to come out to these regional events. Thank you.
Spencer?
Thank you very much, and thank you for the presentation. Just a couple of issues. It's very good to see that CTCN is very popular, being reviewed every year. That is very useful. What we may want to ask is, what is the role of the AB in those reviews, if any, and how can we help, of course, not only during the review, but even after the review. So the idea was asking for the terms of reference is also very useful. If we can have a sight of it, that will be very useful, because we will see how all this review come together, and then how do we take all of the recommendations going forward. That being said, the UNFCCC review, the 10 recommendations, I think we need to compliment the CTC for the response. I think there are some very good response. But to a large extent, some of the recommendations are not static in nature. They're not for just one occasion. They basically will be over several years. And some of the responses will be in that same vein, in my view. Of course, to start is always very good. And we have seen the start of addressing all of the 10 recommendations. So we may want to ask the CTCN to tell us how they will be tracking those recommendations and the responses to those recommendations over an extended period of time. And we may have 10 recommendations from UNFCCC, but we may have others that we may want to track the same way. So maybe we may want to look at that issue. And the other area is the issue relating to recommendation 10. And we, of course, we see that the response is very clear. A deputy will be a lead on this particular issue of resource mobilization and so on, which is very good. The issue which I will ask is, what are the implications for the budget of the CTCN on this particular issue? Because I've seen in several places where we have fundraising capacity improved, and all it does is create additional costs on the organization. So it will be useful to have a sense of what will be that, if there is any additional cost, where they will be placed. It's going to be placed on top of the administrative burdens that we already have. So we need to clarify this. But it's very nice to see that we have some high-level delegation for the issue of addressing recommendation number 10. Because recommendation number 10 is not only coming from the review of the UNFCCC, it has been in every annual report that we have provided so far, that we need to look at the issue of resource mobilization. Of course, when we had the grand idea of the CTCN, we might have been over ambitious, because we were thinking then of spending a lot of money every year. That may not be available at this point in time. So it's useful to see if we can at least change the dynamics and spend more on technical assistance. And finally, I believe that there is as I remember now, there is a sense that we are focusing a lot on technical assistance, but there are other functions of the CTCN which needs equal focus. Thank you.
Thank you. Ian, I would give the floor now to you.
Thank you. Just a few quick remarks. So thanks for the presentation. It's extremely helpful, and I agree with Spencer's. Is good responses so far, and very encouraging to see the work being done in response to the independent review. So it's very helpful for us to hear that. I had a few specific questions. I guess a broader question is whether this presentation might be available. I think this is the kind of information that would be helpful to digest and think about ahead of the AB meeting. So I don't know if it's in the document somewhere, and maybe I missed it, but I think in several places I kind of wanted more information. Like in 9, we encouraged CTCN to reinforce involvement of network members, and part of the response was most TA is now being provided by the network. But for example, it'd be helpful to know, what are the numbers behind that, for instance. Or another example, in recommendation number 3, we have on clarifying the role of developed country NDEs. There's a point about a systematic approach to developed country NDE engagement as a component of updated internal donor reporting protocols. I'm not exactly sure what that means exactly, so this just feels like something that could have been would be helpful to see a bit more sort of fleshed out and circulated in writing. And to Spencer's point, I think seeing the progress we make, I understand this is early days in responding to the independent review recommendations, and again, this is going in a great direction, but it's helpful for us in terms of providing guidance to be able to look and engage with the materials as much as possible, but good to see the work on this so far, and I find this encouraging, so thanks.
Thank you. Claudia?
Thank you very much, Chair, and I would like to take the floor to support the comments made by Spencer on the role of the AB in helping the CTCN as they move forward on the implementation of action to attend the recommendations of the different reviews, in particular the UNFCCC review process. And also, of course, in light of things that would be useful for parties as they design the assessment going forward of this of the technology mechanism, and in particular of the CTCN. So I think it is not, of course, for someone in particular now to answer, but I think we as the AB need to reflect on this carefully and see how are we envisioning this review process and the role of the AB as we want to improve and make sure that the CTCN can improve over time and be more effective. So I think this is just to echo that comment of Spencer and also share the view that I think it's also on us to elaborate what we as AB, as current AB, see the role of the AB in the review process. And I also want to echo Ian's point on having the documentation, the presentations before, because I also was trying to follow and write, and then I realized I need to ask for this presentation. So it would be useful to have it a little bit before the time. And also on this issue of, I understand there is always this need to respond quickly and try to say we're taking care of things and we have a plan, but there's also, I think, a valid point on saying there are recommendations that might be difficult and also even risky to implement. So when we are, for example, saying we want to move to the regional scale so that we can be effective, I will challenge that a little bit, right? Like there are some implementation projects that need to be local and need to go to the country that it's requiring that technology or that's requiring that help. And when you move to regional, there might be transaction costs and coordination efforts that might require a different approach. So I guess the issue is like dealing effectively with requests is not one-size-fits-all solution. So I will call there for a balance and reflection on what's our response to the effectiveness issue and an efficiency issue, which I understand might be difficult for the CTCN as a first response to propose a solution. But my point is that not all countries will require the same way to deal with this recommendation. And some technical assistance might be already very efficient, while others might require some thinking about how we move forward with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Before I give the floor back to the CTCN team and to UN Environment, just a quick reaction in my non-official capacity as representing the European Commission here, and also reflecting a bit on our engagement with the CTCN about reviews, because when we try to secure money for the CTCN, we have to answer questions to our budgetary authority, and we have to provide evidence, and sometimes this evidence could be provided via a form of a review. And the first one we've done in 2016, which was implemented by UN Environment, was just to provide this confidence in the CTCN, and but also it was done at a very early stage. So there was basically a lot of TAs, and the establishment of the knowledge management system took place afterwards. So I would see that this set of independent reviews are also providing confidence to donors, and each review is also building on the previous one. So I would assume that also the independent review done for the Secretariat last year built a lot on the past activities. So I think it's a learning exercise to create confidence on elements, so it's more information is shared about the terms of reference and also about the findings. It's also good for the donor community to build trust and to come back to Samuel's and Warner's point, to also be more attractive to donors to really get this outrage and say these are good independently qualified data to provide evidence that this is well invested money into the CTCN. So I would now, Mark, you want to take the floor?
I could respond very, very quickly to Meta's point. So the review to which you referred was conducted earlier this year by the Department of Quality Support in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Denmark. It was an internal requirement of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or DANITA in this case, that future funding of the for the CTCN was contingent on their own internal exercise. So this was quite different from the earlier review, which was done by the UN Environment's internal independent evaluation office. And again, I stress it, it's an internal requirement. So I've asked DANITA whether they could share that. It's not a document that's ours, it's their document. We certainly cooperated to the fullest extent with the reviewers. I stepped out to make a phone call to see if we could get it, and I don't think there's any reason why they wouldn't want to share it. They're not public documents in the sense that they're put on the website, but they are distributed to Parliament and within the ministry. So my hope is that DANITA will see no reason to not share the report widely. I myself haven't seen the final one. I met with the evaluators. I think many of us did. They probably contacted some of you. But again, to stress, it was their own requirement, their own review, and nothing came up in it that I'm aware of is embarrassing. We're not hiding anything. It's just not ours. I hope before we conclude, we can, if not give it to you, we can tell you where to find it.
Okay, is there any comment coming from observers or network members on this item? Just to, oh, sorry, I'm a bit short-sighted on my left side. So I think Sergi, you've been first, and then it's Claudia.
Yes, thank you, Kirsten. I don't know if it could be of some help to highlight the fact that we have several points raised by the report, the assessment report, and from some point, the CTCN can have a direct, so to say, impact or a direct response or direct action. But for some others, they could be just influential, just to take the words of the transitional theory that we will speak about perhaps tomorrow. For example, for the role of the Annex 1 NDEs, I assume that CTCN could just act as an influential, could have just an influential role. For example, it's a good idea to set up the pro bono or to incorporate the donors, including NDEs, etc. But the main problem raised in another places, perhaps, I assume the COP or the countries themselves.
Thank you. Claudia?
Thanks, Carsten, and sorry to come back again. Just very quick to say that I've seen several slides and also some comments on the need to provide value for donors, and I really think we should be careful. We need to provide value for all parties in the UNFCCC process, and I understand where this is coming from, but of course, I think it's on the interest of the CTCN and all parties to provide value for everybody, including developed and developing countries. So I think this is, I would recommend to be careful and just think about the provision of value for all parties. Thank you.
Thank you. I see there's a flag raised by an observer, so I would give you the floor. Can you briefly introduce yourself?
Thank you. My name is Maxwell Tim. I am the National Designated Entity of Uganda. I just wanted to make some comment in regard to recommendation number 8, encourages the CTCN to continue raising awareness of its services. I think the response should have taken care of the fact that the national designated entities plays a complementary role at the country level, because what you see here, the CTCN is emphasizing the regional events for profiling and also networking. That is at that level. But at the country level, it is actually the NDEs who go around and talking about the services that are that are provided by the CTCN. So I think I would have been happier as an NDE to see this being highlighted at the country level, much as what is talked about here is at the regional level. Thank you.
Thank you, very useful. I would give now the floor back to the Secretary. I think Jamie?
Maybe I just start with because this Danida review is the most recent one for us, and it's extremely good in that sense that it would be very good if we could disclose it to you, because it's based on the basic numbers of what we did, and they made very thorough work. So that is something which is valuable, so we try to do it. On challenges, I mean, Mette, you said that we are only talking about the good story, and that is what usually the projects are telling. But yes, there is a challenging one. Is that the whole idea of CTCN was to use the kind of this network. 450 institutions have come, 200 are private sector, but only 10% of them are used. That means that we have been able to bid out technical assistance requests about 40, 50, something like that. And that is because of that, when we get the money, we put it out, yes, indeed. But that is the space. And the other half has been done with the consortium partners, but it is now more and more the network. So every time when we bid out, maybe a new network member is engaged in technical assistance, but still it's marginal to the size of the network. And how to get them otherwise activated? We have invited them to our regional meetings. We have invited, of course, here. Many of them don't see that this is a business opportunity for them. Exactly for this so little monies which we are talking about. We are talking about the $150,000 assignment per year. So it doesn't really, I can't see that very attractive on things. I said that one of our challenges and omission maybe is that how to engage scientific and research institutions, which are also almost 100 in our network, as they usually don't do technical assistance. They kind of share knowledge. They partner with us. Again, we maybe have to do something more so that we can get that intelligence to the use of it. Another issue is the capacity of the national designated entities to make awareness of the CTCN in their countries, exactly how it was said, that they are the ones, and they usually have very meager resources to go around and tell that this service is there and meet their industry, meet their NGOs or science community and tell that this is available. And the whole idea of CTCN was not to serve NDEs with the technical assistance, but through NDEs to serve the country's most important technology needs, which usually the proponents are outside of the government, or very often. Of course, we have half of the technical assistance have been for the governments. That means policy making, regulations, standards, and so on. But the other half are exactly trying to put the technical assistance to serve the whole business community or serve the people and municipalities, sub-regional things. We have not yet made it really happen. That is a challenge how to activate. And then maybe the one thing is exactly that what shall we do with the developed country NDEs and institutions and technical assistance resources under or linked to the developed country NDEs? How to make them understanding that the needs coming through the CTCN are important needs of the developing countries, and that they should look at them and come to us and say that, look, we pick up this one, that this is something we want to do in this country. We even have some motivation for markets or something. Only few countries have come, because maybe the way how we present these cases to developed country NDEs and the institutions behind them is not the right way. And that's what we are trying to formulate here, that systemic effort of making it so that these developed country institutions can understand that this is an opportunity, actually, that they might have their own resources to bring in, or they can get their governments to back up something. This challenge, it seems to be that it has not been working. I totally admit that we have maybe look too much inside while trying to serve the requests. And that's why we made it here. Maybe the wording is a bit too fluffy on that, but that was our meaning, that yes, let's by all means get all the resources on board.
Thanks. I just wanted to respond to a few of the comments. First of all, in terms of the participation of network members in regional forums, in the regional forum in Asia Pacific, half of the participants were network members. It helped that we held it in the Republic of Korea, which has more than 10% of our overall network members, so that definitely helped. But I did speak to the network members, and there was two main messages that they passed in terms of the value. The first was the fact that they did appreciate a better understanding of the process, and they felt that that would help them better design their engagement. And the second was that they identified a number of opportunities to generate new business. And as one concrete example, beginning of the week, we were talking to Sri Lanka, who said, we want support from CTCN for transport. And by the end of the week, I said, okay, so this transport thing, we'll follow up on it. And he said, oh, no, actually, we spoke to a network member. We're going in another direction. We've got it all sorted out already. So that's an example of one of the business opportunities that was created from our regional forum with no intervention from our part. In terms of the challenging, I would say there's the technical challenge we're facing most right now is in terms of improved long-term monitoring. And in terms of the human resource capacity, we identified that it was clear that we needed more training and internal capacity. But you'll notice that there's items to address both of these in the annual operating plan. And I think that does bring me to an important point, is that the responses to this review have driven all of our processes. We haven't looked at them in isolation as an agenda item separately to the rest of our business. It has been involved. It has been the formation and the basis of all of the work we've done in planning to move forward. On the question of resource implications, many of the responses are cost neutral, like setting resource mobilization targets and revising the TA reporting template. Those are cost neutral. Others do have costs, especially the recommendations related to engagement and partnerships. But as the response to the review has driven our planning processes, these costs are already included in the budget that we've prepared. And same thing with reporting. Since we're mainstreaming our response into the program of work and the project documents, we will be reporting on the activities that we're undertaking to respond to the reviews as part of our standard annual reporting process. So it should come up. It should come up regularly. Finally, on systematic engagement, there's a number of different elements to that, but just to flag that on the pro bono support, one of the concrete actions we've taken is that we're now following the Secretary General's guidance on accepting and recording in-kind and pro bono contributions. So that's one way that we've systemized the way we manage the in-kind support that we're receiving from developed country NDEs.
I have just a few additions to some of the comments that have been shared. I definitely concur with Jamie on the challenging in terms of the long-term impact monitoring. As we've done, it's very difficult to have a plan for that since when a technical assistance is starting. And also to reply to the efficiency topic, I mean, according to the book, we are evaluated by the advisory board in terms of our performances. We have two main guiding principles: timeliness and effectiveness. While timeliness is rather obvious, I mean, to deliver on time, the effectiveness, of course, entails the impact. And this is one of the exercises in which we are really digging into to define indicators, also to come back to what you were pointing out. Indicators, if you look at our closure report, that then will be public as a further action for transparency. We have defined many of them. We have now a set of 31, actually. And this exercise is the result of having mapped what both our donors are asking for, our country's priorities. So it's a mix of indicators that should then map the impact of our technical assistance. Of course, every TA is a specific case study, so indicators are not for all. So then you have to decline, if you want, make a declination of those according to the specific case study, and this is the exercise that we are definitely now improving more and more. And coming back to the Canada comment on the regional fora, the rationale on why network members should join, and this is also how I see a very interesting triangulation with Annex 1 countries. In fact, as you know, I mean, they are also invited to join our meetings. I mean, we met with Canada in Montevideo during the Climate Week. Canada represented the trade officer. It was a very interesting exchange there. And I think also Annex 1 countries can definitely help us engaging with the network at regional level, because you have trade missions, you have a bunch of countries, of companies active in the region, they have knowledge. So also you may also encourage them to become network members if they're not already. So this could be another way to encourage them to participate, because they can have a potential market opportunities. Of course, there are not so many because we don't publish 200 bids per year. This is what we are. We are a small mechanism, but at least also our niche that we are trying to identify, meaning the enabling environment to prepare a bigger actions, scale up actions. This can be a way also for them to map what is happening in specific regions and focus their intervention, ask information also from us. So this can be a more interactive role. Of course, if they're merely looking at budget, it's not going to be super easy for us to engage with them. But in a more broader sense on business opportunities, I think we can give some good tips in there. And to finalize, I would agree also with the comment, I think it was from Grenada. Yes, about it's not just about technical assistance. And I think I would like to stress the fact that capacity building is so much instrumental to increase the impact of technical assistance. Especially if we want to build up regional requests, we need capacity building actions capable of preparing that ground. Because to have multi-country requests, sorry, not regional requests, I call them more properly multi-country requests, because you have to put together a bunch of countries, and doing it just like via remote through emails is really tough. So if we can also have specific budget to have small regional meetings and share these climate needs with countries, is going to be so much easier and more effective to prepare this multi-country request that we are aiming at in order to increase the impact. So I think that was my last comment. Thanks.
Thank you. I think I would like to, because we are past the 6 o'clock mark, I think we will come back to a number of items in the next part. If there are any urgent points, I would give you the floor.
Spencer on that costs of fundraising. I think that just to say that as Vanna said, that there is a huge potential for us to get partners who are ready to finance our activities if we present it rightly, right case, right story, right narrative. And therefore, if we engage a fundraiser or resource mobilization officer, yes, indeed, it is the worth of maybe one bigger technical assistance request. But that input might bring us millions of dollars worth of support from those unusual suspects, those which have not been engaged with us still, because we have not been going around and convinced all the parties. So in a way, yes, you're right. It is taking money a bit. It's an investment, and it has to bring multiple benefits back to us. And we try to be very cautious on that.
Okay, I'm still keen on still having the presentation on the program of work. So we might have some angry Austrians entering the room rather soon, but I would still give the floor to Samuel and then to Messi for a quick intervention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Just a very quick one. And perhaps I could have asked, made a comment before you can respond. I think we need, arising from what Spencer said with respect to cost implication of operationalizing the recommendations, I think there is need to include also in this recommendation, perhaps something like to invite the CTCN to come up with cost implication of operationalizing the recommendation. I think it is necessary we include this in our recommendation. Thank you.
Matthew?
Thank you. Just a point in terms of the resource mobilization role. The end product will be, hopefully, more financing coming into the centre, not just in private or public, but also philanthropic. But the means by which that activity happens creates great benefit for the CTCN because it links together the sponsors, it highlights the profile of the various actors, it brings together the UN institutions. So that role really, in my view, and it's something that certainly when I was a party member to the advisory board, there was a lot of discussion around the importance of this role, regardless of what it's called. It's a way of bringing together public, private, and NGOs, philanthropic organizations, multilateral development banks, the UN institutions, and any actor that formally wishes to engage. So there is a huge communication portfolio within that role. The end product might be finance, but the interaction, the mechanism by which the CTCN has a public face within those various countries is hugely important.
Thank you, Mr. Very, very useful. Before we move on to the next and last agenda item for today, just we discussed now the independent review and the messages. Also, a lot of them we will find back in the program of work and in the budget, in the annual operating plan for 2019. So maybe we have a chance to come back to elements. There was a request from some advisory board members to get the presentation, so to see an update on it, and so maybe that's also the platform where you can incorporate comments like the one of Samuel into your presentation, so that we have a follow-up to the discussion now. With this, I would now slightly open the next item, and I'm sure we will not finish this in about -6 minutes. It's agenda item 8 on the CTCN program of work and annual operating plan. So there we have 2 items. I would just like to introduce this now, and I would also like to keep this as an A and a B item. So one is to discuss on the multi-annual program of work for 2019 to 2022. We have received a longer document, and we will now introduce it. There's a second part of it, which is the operating plan for 2019. So these are two items, and we would start now with an initial kick-off presentation by the Secretariat to introduce the program of work, including the theory of change, to maybe also enlighten us our discussions we will have over the Austrian reception later on. So the idea is now to get a quick initial presentation, and then we maybe have a round to see how we structure the discussion on this item, which will be with us for some more hours over the next two days. So with this opening, I would give the floor over to you, and we will have some initial slides.
Yes. First of all, I would like to say thank you. I think my job is already done since you've been talking about the program of work all afternoon. But I will give a little bit of background on process. Oops. What did I do, Scott? First of all, I think you've already heard a lot about the process that has gone on prior to undertaking the second program of work. And it's Right now, the CTCN is at a bit of a crossroad. I mean, it is a very young organization. It's just finishing its first 5 years. And so regardless of where things stand in the negotiations, we've had one independent review. The MOU's been renewed. So right now we have the opportunity to review what we've been doing, to go back to the COP mandate, see how we move forward from here. It's already been mentioned that the COP mandate is much more than just technical assistance. And that's one of the things that we did look at. Oh, good grief. There. So our big issue was really how do we take the mandate and move it forward for the next 4-year period? We have a lot of input. We have the mandate, we have the COP decisions, we have AB guidance, we have lessons learned, and we have the review recommendations as well as the recommendations from donors. So one of the ways we've done that, which is slightly different than the first program of work, is to use the theory of change as a tool. It is simply a way of ensuring that we are all on the same page, that we can find out how best to get to the end point of where we want to be in 4 years. So it is, if you think of bringing a horse to water, it is sort of how you get the horse to drink and survive. So these are the steps that are necessary, or that the Secretariat has seen as necessary to get to where we want to be, which is our long-term goal. In this case, that developing countries have the capacity to use climate technologies. And it is a process that involves the 3 core services, so that has not disappeared, but it's also a way to make sure that the activities that the CTCN undertakes and the outputs that come from them meet the expected outcomes. So part of the theory of change, once it is finalized through the AOPs, will strengthen the M&E track. So it should help to get to Claudia's point of providing value to all, not just the donors, because if you provide value to everyone in this process, you are in fact providing the value that you need for the donors as well. And let me get the right. So literally, I mean, the theory of change is just a way to identify the long-term and intermediate goals. It also links the first POW with the second. In the first POW, I believe they used a slightly different process. But part of that is also that we need to make sure that the CTC process is linked into the processes of the host agencies, because they do use the theory of change as one of the ways to set up their documentation for the CTCN. So the program of work, it helps to take the priorities that were identified through the theory of change and aligning them with what the AB sees as their needs with the host agencies. And it turns those priorities, it assigns targets and indicators, which will strengthen the M&E process. And then we will have a way to ensure that the annual operating plans will also link back into the program of work, and that we have a more systematic and efficient process in place. And it's not, what we've presented in the program of work is literally a draft. This is a starting point. It is something that we feel is a good, solid basis for discussion and for input from the advisory board, so that it is literally a document that all of us are comfortable with and know that it will take us to where we need to go over the next 4 years. Because it is a very crowded field right now. You know, finding money is not easy. So the POW will help guide the AOPs, and it will not be a static document. As the Secretariat, the CT Secretariat moves on, any lessons learned will be captured and measured and reported on, and the POW can be updated as needed and then feed back into the AOP process. Finally, I think one of the issues that we've been discussing here is regional, national versus regional. And one of the things that I want to say is that the work of the CTC Secretariat, and particularly the managers, they may have a geographic focus based on 4 geographical regions, but the actual work takes place at more than one level. And so there is a lot of work that will go in at the national level. There is other work that will go in at the regional level, and then there is the global component. So it is not meant to say, oh, you know, the CTCN is only going to do regional work that has high transformational impact. There will be efforts that happen at the national level because there's a lot of training, capacity building that needs to be done at that level. So the program of work incorporates these levels, as do the AOPs, or as they will. Yeah, I think that's all I have, and look forward to comments. And I think we're all here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Deborah. I think this is a very interesting and rich concept you introduced. I would now not really open the floor on your presentation, looking on the time. I would more like to get a consent among us how to advance the discussion, because if we follow the agenda that we all agreed some hours ago, we revisit this topic by 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon after coffee. So we should maybe use the time in between to see what is the best way of approaching this further. So my initial thought is that we maybe have a quick exchange on the methodology you introduced without overspending the time on the tool you used, because the main point is to see really what is the content of the second program of work and how we get how we move this forward. We also need maybe to understand a bit better what is actually the purpose of the second program of work. So that we discuss this briefly, what is the relevance for the UNFCCC process and for the hosting organization and for the planning security inside the CTCN. So with this broader framework, I see that Spencer wants to take the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I think, and thank you for the presentation. I think it's a good basis for our work during the course of I think it's a good basis. We can of course work with this document as we go forward. Again, as indicated, it is work in progress. But just one question I will want to ask, because I'm not quite sure if I got it right. I think developing countries capacity for developing countries to use climate technologies, I think that is quite limiting. I think, so if we going forward with our program for developing countries to use climate technologies, I think that is not the mandate. I think the mandate has to do more development and transfer of technologies to developing countries. And if we're using the terminology to use to mean that, fine, but I just want to caution that we need to be more ambitious and stick more with the mandate in that going forward. But I have no difficulty with working with the draft document and define a process to its final approval. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comment of a general nature on this this item? So I would suggest that we close this now. We maybe have a more I see Ian.
Thank you. I'm just wondering when we could clarify when we will have time to discuss the second program of work in detail, because I think the more time we have to discuss it and advance the product, the better. So maybe if there's some short time now, we can start discussion, or maybe we're out of time.
So I'm in your hands. I've seen in the timeline that we should be now, in about 7 minutes, we should be in another building for the reception. I think it's maybe now not the most appropriate time. We've foreseen the time to visit this back at 4 o'clock tomorrow. So to come back on this, and then we should see how to sharpen what we have on the table, and maybe also see how we what we can do here. And if because the task is that we should endorse the program, if we should then see if we can get a consensus about this, or what are the next step. Spencer, are you? I thought he's. So I suggest we stop this discussion now. We move back to element to this tomorrow afternoon. I would suggest, if Madam Chair agrees, that we would close this, maybe looking a bit on tomorrow morning's discussion, where we have some financial item. And what I would suggest is that we, if you all agree, and I'm not saying this lightly, is that we need proper time to discuss this item. There will be other items that are. What would you think if we would just start by 9 o'clock? So we just maybe give us half an hour earlier, and we would also start with the finance-related items that are foreseen for tomorrow morning. So we would maybe clarify some issues around the financial statement for 2017 we have to endorse, and also look on the budget that was presented to the advisory board members. And if I understood the room correctly, we would keep this session open to observers, but we would not switch on the webcast for this for this item. Is this would this be agreeable to all of you? I see Spencer.
Well, you said 9 o'clock, but we scheduled for 9:30. So I mean, we have already committed 9 o'clock tomorrow. So I'm not quite sure if I will be called in two places at the same time. I have already, scheduled 9 o'clock. So I mean,
if you have, so we just need to be sure when we are here. So the proposal that we made is to be at 9 o'clock in this room, if you all agree. If not, we skip to 9:30, but we would maybe make up a bit of the time that we lost, that we invested today differently. Spencer, would this be agreeable? 9 o'clock in this room?
No, I just indicated that I have already have commitment for 9 o'clock. So, I mean, you could go ahead, but I will be here. Yeah.
Then we would stick to 9:30 because it's important to have all voices on board. So 9:30, we start with financial items, and I see Sumaya.
Just one short clarification. We'll come back to Agenda 8 tomorrow at some time, because we need to talk about finance, but this is the most important thing. For what you need the finance. We'll come back to this. This is a clarification I'm asking.
We'll break up the discussion. We come back to this. This is a promise.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, so we close the meeting for today.